Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Ellen. And I have to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name, please?
Lazarus.
Okay, this is easy. Okay. Lazaros, thank you so much for saying yes to our interview. I'm so happy that you are here. I would love to introduce you to the audience, of course. And your father passed away when you were 2 years old. And at the age of 26, you had a nearly fatal car accident yourself. You questioned everything you were doing in your life. And then you questioned who you were and the choices you were making. And then what something changed in your life, and you are talking about that with us now, and I'm so happy that you're here. You are the CEO of the Next Level University podcast, a global top 100 podcast with 1,750 episodes, I think a little bit more now, and listened in over 170 countries. Thank you so much for saying yes to our interview, and welcome to the Inspired podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm here to answer anything that you think would be of value.
Oh, thank you. Okay, my first question is, your life was profoundly impacted by the loss of your father at a young age and your own near fatal car accident at 26. How did these experiences shape your outlook on life and influence your decision to leave corporate America to start your own business?
So I think early on, being born in an environment of adversity, obviously, my father passing away when I was 2, he was 28, my mom was 31, my sister was 6. So being born into that situation, definitely mortality was never an intellectual understanding. It was always an experiential one for me. So I think that life had a little bit more of a profound pain to it than most people experience right away. So there was really no Candyland childhood type of thing for me. And then my stepfather came into the picture, and he left when I was 14, and that was very challenging as well because the very short version of it is he got the yacht and the apartment building, we got the house and the dog, and he took 90% of the income with him. And I haven't spoken to him or any of that family since. So the way that changed my life, though, essentially, is I think that I developed this deep understanding that maybe some people have, maybe they don't, I don't know. Uh, where I think there's two sort of camps of life. Some people think life is supposed to be great, and when it's not, they think something's wrong with the world or wrong with them, and this is mostly unconscious. And then the camp that I was born into is life is very, very, very adverse and challenging and hard, and suffering is a thing. Suffering is a part of life. And despite that, you can make it meaningful and you can make it matter and you can do something meaningful with it. And so I think that over here, this camp can be really hard for people to go through adversity, whereas this camp over here, I think, is a lot closer to maybe the accurate truth. My cat is making an appearance right now on the podcast, by the way. Hi, sweetheart.
I love
Sorry about that. My cat wants in on the podcast. But anyways, so the way in which this changed my life, though, is when I got in a car accident at 26, my father having passed away in a car accident, it really was the second chance that he never got. And so for me, that's when I went all in on legacy, which is really having a deep impact far beyond your own life and really focusing more on impact than anything else, because ultimately that's where meaning is going to come. Now, how you do that and how much you do that needs to be very catered. But ultimately, I think doing meaningful work toward meaningful goals for a meaningful purpose is what reoriented my whole life, because I think a lot of people live in nihilism, which is hopelessness, and they think the past is better than the future. Yeah.
Wow, this was a great answer. Thank you so much for sharing. I got so much from this answer alone. I have to re listen to this episode. Definitely. Of course, I have another question. Transitioning from a successful career to becoming the CEO of the Next Level University podcast must have been a significant leap. What challenges did you face during this transition, and how did you overcome them?
So the number one challenge with this, I call it the three paths that you can take in life. The first path is the common one, and it's the road that I had taken, do well in high school, do well in college, uh, go into corporate and have a more certainty about the paycheck coming in and that kind of thing. So that's the common path. And I don't actually blame anyone for taking that path. I actually think that that's really quite smart for most people. And I think it's a good thing. And I think there's a lot of nobility in it. And I also think that we need people who are willing to be a part of organizations that are larger to provide services and stuff. I think that's really good. I really do. And I think most people should not be entrepreneurs. So that's the common path. And I think that that is very good and very rewarding and very meaningful for a lot of people. The second path is what Kevin and I did at Next Level University. Kevin's my business partner. That's the all in, burn your boats, start your own business and basically don't look back and don't have a plan B. I actually think that's really reckless for most people. I actually don't think it's a good idea. And really what I learned is if you do decide to do that, what you realize is that most people probably shouldn't be entrepreneurs. And this is probably scary to share, but the reason why is because the amount of uncertainty and the amount of work and the amount of grit and the amount of self-belief that you need to have in order to actually succeed in business is really ridiculous. It honestly is kind of comical almost how bad it is. And so we've succeeded and I'm grateful and that's awesome, but it's through massive pain and failure compounded over time. I mean, we work 6 days a week, every week. We haven't taken a vacation in 7 years. Like we don't have families or kids yet. So for us, that was a doable thing, but it's unbelievably, think about how hard you think it is to start your own business. Now multiply that by 100. And that's probably scraping the surface of what it actually is, despite what Instagram might show you. And then the third path is a hybrid. And this is the one that I really recommend for people because this is the one that gets rid of the what if factor. And the hybrid model is, I call it the two trains. One train is short-term profitability, which is a way to make immediate capital. And the second train is long-term profitability. So for example, for us, the podcast is a long-term win where we build a brand, we help people all over the world, but it took us a long time to build momentum. And so fortunately, we had some things that were short-term profitable, like one-on-one coaching. And so the hybrid model is I'm going to stay at my steady day job, for lack of better phrasing, and I'm going to use some of that capital to invest in the long-term train. The long-term train will eventually, keyword eventually, start paying you back more than the short-term train. But you can't really quit the short-term train until after the long-term train starts to pay back. And so the last analogy of this is people say in business, well, if you could go to Vegas and put $1 in and make 10 back, how often would you play? The truth is, it's more like you put $1 in, get punched in the face 10 times, and then 2 years later, you get $10 back. And so the truth of the matter is, I think most people should consider the hybrid model. I call it the two trains. The problem with that is it can be difficult to balance or harmonize both of those simultaneously.
Yes, absolutely. I can relate to that. And you said before about you burned the boats as well, so you did not follow the third model. And I love your analogy with the two trains as well. And yeah, and then you said not everyone is born to be an entrepreneur. Let's say this. And how would you know this without trying? Without trying.
Yeah. So I actually think, and again, the way that you know this is, are you ignited by failure or are you defeated by it? Fortunate. So Kevin always admits, so he's my business partner. We've been doing this for 7 years. We started the company together. When we fail, he is demoralized. When we fail, I am motivated. So it really does come down to that. Do you get motivated by failure or do you get demoralized by failure? If you get demoralized by failure, you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur unless you have a business partner who is motivated by failure. Because Kevin has been so I have a lot of self-belief, and that'll be obvious to anyone listening. Kevin is the one who struggled with self-belief, and he was our humility. So he has what's called productive paranoia, where if we're going to do a live event, he's going to remember that it might snow. I'm not even going to think of that because I'm an optimist who's always thinking about the future. So he's the one who keeps us from going out of business by being pessimistic and realistic. I'm the one who's the insane visionary optimist. And so you kind of need both of those if you're going to succeed in business. And that's actually why some of the incubator programs, which are just companies that invest in companies, don't really want to invest in companies that have only one founder, because typically you need two founders that balance each other out and harmonize with complementary skill sets. So Kevin's productive paranoia and pessimism has actually been wildly beneficial, as long as it's balanced out with my optimism and visionary. And even when you go back to the two trains, I mean, one of them is short-term profitability. That's what Kevin has always been focused on, and I've always been focused on long-term building a brand and a business. And so we luckily have each other. And in the beginning, I had no idea that this was the case. It's just obvious in hindsight because we coach a lot of people that fail, and some of them succeed. But people ask us like, "Well, how did you do it?" And the truth is, it's not really doable for most people because we work 6 days a week, 10-hour days every week for the last 7 years. And we have both of us, right? There's two of us. So I don't think most people should be entrepreneurs. And if you are demoralized by failure and not ignited by it, you probably need a business partner who is, or you should not start your own business.
Wow, I love what you said. And by the way, I had Kevin in one of my podcast episodes already. And yes,
Nice.
please listen to that, dear listeners. Yes, it's amazing. I cannot tell you the number now, but yeah, you will find it when you insert the name in Spotify, of course, Kevin Palmieri, right? And
Yep.
yes, of course. And I have another question for you, and it is about your podcast. What do you believe resonates most with your audience, and what drives you to continue producing content at such a high level?
So I think what we've come to understand over time, so our listeners, Kevin and I we were both bodybuilders. I was a fitness model, and we were kind of a couple bros that we thought we were going to end up inspiring men. And we're inspiring more men now, but over the years we started to realize that our listener were women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who struggle with courage, clarity, and confidence, who want more fulfillment out of their intimate relationship and their careers, and who want to be more successful ultimately, holistically successful, health, wealth, and love. They don't want to just be successful in one area, and neither do Kevin and I. I just don't understand why anyone would ever want to be wealthy but not healthy, or healthy and wealthy but not in love. To us, it's health, wealth, and love, and it's really important to be holistic. But it's also way harder. It's really, really hard. And if you look at the stats of that, let's say you want to be top 1% in health, top 1% in wealth, and top 1% in love. That's 1 over 100 times 1 over 100 times 1 over 100. So now you're 1 in a million. So you're shooting for something that's actually really hard to do. That said, I think it's worth it. Uh, the ultimate thing at the root of why we produce content is, if people are more fulfilled. So if people believe in themselves, self-belief, and they have more self-worth, they they will be more fulfilled and more successful. And if they're more fulfilled and more successful, they won't hurt people. Fulfilled people don't hurt people. Fulfilled people don't attack people. Fulfilled people don't make hate comments on your YouTube channel. They're just too busy being fulfilled, and they have meaningful lives. And so ultimately underneath it is holistic self-improvement leads to success and fulfillment. Success and fulfillment leads to a meaningful life, as long as it's in alignment with your core values and core beliefs. And if you have a meaningful life, you're going to end up contributing a lot to the world, and you're not going to hurt people. And so ultimately that's kind of the mission, in a nutshell.
Wow, I love what you said about fulfillment and having success at the same time, or the one causes the other. I don't know if, yeah, I think this is what you said. And thank you so much for sharing. And of course, I would like to know about your goals. Do you set goals for yourself? And what is one of your goals for the next month?
Absolutely. And Caroline, I do want you to know I do have a coaching session in 3 minutes. So can this be the last question? Is that okay?
Of course, whatever
Okay.
you
All
like.
right.
Thank you.
So goals. So I break my goals down into, I call it dreamlining. We have this journal called the Dreamliner that we use, and essentially there's a mountain on the front of it, and the star is at the top of the mountain, and the star is the metaphorical dreams and goals. And so you take your dreams, which is 10 years plus, and then you break them down into an annual goal for 2024, and then you break those down into quarterly goals, which we call milestones, and then you break those milestones down into inch pebbles, and inch pebbles are your daily habits and metrics. And so yeah, I do have goals for myself. We're trying to hit a 500,000 this year in gross revenue in our business. We have a cash on hand goal. I'm trying to get to 30 clients in business coaching. I'm at 27 now. So that's kind of what we do. But there's a whole process that comes with figuring out what metrics to measure and what goals to set, because ultimately the goals you set determine what you measure determines what you focus on determines what you do and don't do, and what you do and don't do determines whether or not you are successful and fulfilled. So it's actually quite the process. And yeah, that's called dreamlining. I have an article that I wrote about it that helps people break down their dreams into the little inch pebbles.
Oh, thank you so much. And also for your time. I respect your time. I know you only have 2 minutes. Thank you so much. We will put the links in the show notes, of course. And please reach out to Alan. He's amazing. Do you have one last sentence to our audience?
Personal responsibility. What you say, think, do, feel, and believe is a choice. And what you say, think, do, feel, and believe in response to what's done to you is a choice. So I didn't have a choice in my father passing away. I didn't have a choice in my stepfather leaving. But what I did about that and what I did in reaction to that was my choice. And so luckily I made a good choice because I believed in myself. And I think that this bigger, better, brighter future is predicated on how much you believe in yourself. So hopefully you can take personal responsibility, be humble, and build that bigger, better, brighter future in your mind, and then work toward that every single day, toward a more meaningful life. And I think if we all did that, the world would be a better place. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. See you in the next episode.